It had been 5 years since my son Tommy passed away. The grief was something I had learned to live with, though some days it felt like it was suffocating me. Every year I visited his grave, the same spot in the corner of the cemetery, where the grass was slightly uneven and the headstone still stood strong despite the weathering. The cemetery had always felt peaceful to me, a place where I could feel close to him, even though I knew he was gone. But one evening, as I walked through the graveyard, a chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold night air. It was late, just after sunset, and the moon was rising in the sky. The cemetery was quiet, almost too quiet. As I walked past the rows of gravestones, a strange sound broke through the stillness, a soft scratching, like something moving beneath the earth. At first I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on me. Maybe it was an animal, digging in the dirt. But no matter how hard I tried to convince myself it was nothing, the sound kept growing louder, more distinct. My heart began to race. I stopped in my tracks and turned toward Tommy's grave. The sound seemed to be coming from there, as if something or someone was trying to break through the ground. I couldn't move. My legs felt like stone, and a cold sweat started to form on the back of my neck. Was this some kind of prank? Was someone digging up his grave? But then, as I stood there frozen and staring at the dirt, I noticed something strange. The earth above Tommy's grave seemed to be shifting, as if it were moving on its own. The scratching continued, the noise growing sharper. I couldn't stand it any longer. I had to know what was going on. I rushed to the grave, my heart pounding in my chest. Why was the ground moving like this? I grabbed a nearby shovel, my hands shaking as I started to dig. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Every scoop of dirt that came loose felt like it weighed 100 pounds. The noises from below seemed to be getting louder, more urgent. And then, with one last hard shove, the shovel hit something solid. I knelt down, my breath caught in my throat, and I carefully removed the last layer of dirt. There, beneath the surface, was a small wooden box. My mind raced as I stared at it. I could feel my heart beating faster. What was this? Why was this buried next to my son? The box was old, its surface cracked and weathered by time. But the strange thing was, it didn't seem like a typical keepsake or a burial memento. The markings on the box were unfamiliar, like symbols that didn't belong to any language I knew. I reached down and carefully picked it up, feeling a strange heat radiating from it, as if it was alive. I didn't know why, but I knew that what was inside this box was something that could change everything. But how? Why was it buried with Tommy? With trembling hands, I opened the box. Inside, I found a small piece of paper, aged and yellowed with time, and a key. The paper had only one line written on it. "You're not done. You must find the truth." I stared at the paper, my mind reeling. What truth? What was this key for? Why had Tommy left this behind? The world seemed to spin as I held the box in my hands. The moment I opened it, I knew things would never be the same again. I couldn't make sense of it. The key felt strangely heavy in my hand, and the paper with the cryptic message sent shivers down my spine. "You're not done. You must find the truth." What truth? What had Tommy been involved in that I didn't know? I stood there for what felt like hours holding the box, unable to shake the weight of it all. Why had Tommy left this? Had he known something was going to happen to him? Had he left this message for me in case of what? I looked around the cemetery, the stillness of the night pressing down on me. The graveyard, once a place of quiet reflection, now felt like a dark, oppressive place. I suddenly felt like I wasn't alone, like someone, or something, was watching me from the shadows. But there was no one, just me and the strange box. I sat down beside the grave, my mind racing. What had my son been involved in? What had this key unlocked? The key was ornate, unlike any I had seen before. It wasn't just a tool, it felt like an artifact, a piece of something larger. But what? I reached for the key again and held it up to the light of the moon. It gleamed in the darkness, its design intricate and unfamiliar. Something about the shape of it, something about the way it felt in my hand, made me feel like I had just stepped into a puzzle much bigger than I had ever imagined. I couldn't just walk away from this. My first instinct was to take the box and the key to the authorities. Maybe they could make sense of it. But would they believe me? A part of me knew that there was something here I wasn't supposed to understand, at least not yet. The idea of going to the police crossed my mind, but something inside me held me back. I had to trust my instincts. Tommy had left me this for a reason. He had wanted me to uncover something. I closed the box carefully, placed it under my arm, and stood up. I needed answers. I needed to find out what the key unlocked. I couldn't do this alone, but I couldn't tell anyone just yet. If I did, I might never get to the bottom of this. I walked back to my car, the chill in the air biting at my skin, but I felt no comfort in the familiar surroundings. The cemetery was no longer a peaceful resting place for Tommy. It felt like the doorway to something much darker, something that had been hidden for years. Back in my car, I drove to the one place I knew might have the answers, Tommy's room. It seemed ridiculous, searching his room again after all this time, but I had no other choice. The key, I had to know what it opened. And somehow I felt that whatever secrets were locked away, they were connected to Tommy's life and death. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pulled deeper into a mystery I wasn't prepared for. But deep down, I knew this was the only way to get the answers I needed. When I reached home, I didn't even bother to turn on the lights. I went straight to Tommy's room, where his belongings still sat untouched, as if frozen in time. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop myself. I walked straight to his desk, my eyes scanning the familiar surroundings. There, under a stack of old books, was an envelope. I hadn't seen it before, but the handwriting on the front was unmistakable. It was Tommy's. I opened it quickly, my fingers trembling as I pulled out a single sheet of paper. It read, "The key will open what you need, but be careful. There are people watching. The truth is out there, but it will cost you." I felt my pulse race as I read the words over and over again. There are people watching. Tommy had known something, and now I was in the middle of it. I looked down at the key in my hand once more. It was time to find out what it unlocked. The room felt suffocating as I stood there, staring at the letter in my hands. The key will open what you need, but be careful. There are people watching. The words burned into my mind as I held the paper in the dim light of Tommy's room. His handwriting, so familiar to me, had never looked so foreign. It was as if he had left these warnings for me, knowing I would one day be forced to confront the truth, whatever that truth was. I turned the letter over, hoping there might be more, but there was nothing. The page was blank, except for those chilling words. What did Tommy know? Who were these people watching me? And what could this key possibly open? I couldn't stay in this room any longer. My heart was pounding in my chest, and the feeling of being watched was growing unbearable. The silence in the house was deafening, and I felt more alone than I ever had before. It was as if everything I thought I knew about my son was unraveling before me. I walked over to his dresser, opening drawers without thinking. I needed to keep searching. Maybe there was something else, another clue, another message, something that would make sense of all this. My hands were shaking as I rifled through his clothes, desperate to find something, anything, that could explain the mysteries that were piling up in my mind. Then I found it. Tucked in the back of a drawer, hidden under a pile of old shirts, was another small envelope. It was sealed tightly, and there was no return address, nothing except a simple scrawl on the front, just like the first letter. "For when you're ready." My hands trembled even more as I opened it. Inside there was a single sheet of paper, and as I unfolded it, I felt my chest tighten. The words on the page were short but cryptic, just like before. "They are always watching. The truth is not where you think it is. Find the door and do not turn back. It's the only way to protect what is left." The letter dropped from my hands as I stood frozen in shock. The door? What door? What did all of this mean? And why had Tommy left these warnings for me? The key I had found, the one that seemed to pulse with some kind of hidden energy, was still clutched tightly in my other hand. It was no longer just an object. It was the key to something that had been hidden for far too long, something Tommy had been part of. And now I was stuck with this burden, an urgency that I didn't fully understand, but knew I had to follow. I turned back toward the hallway, trying to shake off the sense of dread that was suffocating me. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that I couldn't stop now. There was something in Tommy's past that had been buried for a reason, and I was the one meant to uncover it. I stepped outside, the cold night air biting at my skin, but it did nothing to cool the burning questions inside me. The door. The truth. What was Tommy mixed up in, and how had he known it would lead me here? I needed answers, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what I was about to uncover, but I had no choice. The key was a symbol of what was left to find, and the more I thought about it, the more certain I was. There was no turning back. The cemetery, the grave, the key. They were all part of something bigger, something my son had known, and something I was about to face. I looked down at the key once more, feeling the weight of it in my hand, and I knew, for better or worse, I had already started down a path I couldn't turn away from. The night seemed to stretch on forever as I drove through the empty streets, the weight of Tommy's secrets pressing down on me. The keys, the letters, the cryptic warnings, each one led me further down a path that I was beginning to fear. What truth was I about to uncover? And why had Tommy left all of this for me? The cemetery came into view, its towering gravestones casting long shadows in the moonlight. The place that had once been a peaceful resting place for Tommy now felt like a dark maze, filled with hidden corners and unanswered questions. The thought of returning to his grave filled me with unease, but I knew I had to go back. The door, the key, it had to lead to something here. I parked my car at the cemetery entrance and stepped out, the chill of the night air biting into my skin. The sound of my footsteps echoed eerily in the quiet, the only other noise being the distant rustling of leaves in the trees. I made my way toward Tommy's grave, the familiar path now feeling foreign, like it held 1,000 secrets waiting to be uncovered. When I reached the spot where his grave lay, I stopped. The ground was undisturbed, the headstone standing tall and unyielding, just like it had always been. But the feeling in the air was different. It felt charged, as though something was stirring just beneath the surface. I knelt beside the grave, holding the key tightly in my hand, my fingers trembling. I couldn't help but feel that this was the moment when everything would change. This was where it began, and this was where it had to end. I looked around, making sure no one was watching, though a part of me knew I wasn't alone. I could feel eyes on me, the oppressive weight of something unseen. Without wasting another moment, I used the key to pry open the metal cover I had uncovered earlier. The soft scrape of metal against stone filled the air, sending a shiver down my spine. The earth was still cold, the air still thick with tension. As I lifted the cover, the ground beneath me seemed to shift. A faint glow illuminated from below, not from the grave itself, but from the ground surrounding it. The key had unlocked something much deeper than I could have imagined. I reached down, pulling out a small, ornate box, the same shape as the one I had found earlier. The symbols on it matched perfectly with those on the first box, but this one felt heavier. It seemed to hum with an energy that I couldn't explain. I opened it slowly, and inside I found something that made my blood run cold. A photo. I stared at it in disbelief. It was a picture of Tommy, but it wasn't just any photo. In the corner of the photo was a man I didn't recognize. A man who looked like he belonged to a time long past, his face hardened and filled with an unsettling kind of knowing. But what was even more disturbing was the way Tommy was looking at him. His eyes seemed darker, as if he knew this man, as if there was some connection between them that went beyond the surface. Under the photo was a letter, its edges worn with age. I unfolded it with shaking hands, the words written in a hurried, jagged script. They are watching. He knows. And they will come for you too, once they see you've opened this. Don't trust anyone. The key is only the beginning. The door's waiting. The letter was signed simply, Tommy. I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. The truth was right in front of me. Tommy had been involved in something far deeper than I had ever known. But now that I had opened the door, the danger was real, and I wasn't sure how much time I had left before it found me. I stepped back from the grave, the photo and letter clutched tightly in my hands. The ground around me seemed to thrum with energy, and I could feel the weight of the secrets pressing in. What had Tommy gotten involved in? What had he known that had led him to leave these clues for me? I had started this journey to find answers, but now I realized that the answers were more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. I stood frozen, staring at the photograph in my hands. The face of the man in the corner of the photo seemed to haunt me, his cold eyes locking onto mine, as if he knew I was going to find this. The letter, now crumpled in my grip, seemed like a warning that I had ignored. Until now. They will come for you too, once they see you've opened this. The weight of the words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My hands shook as I looked back down at Tommy's grave. What had he been involved in? What kind of people were they? I felt a cold breeze wash over me, and the eerie sensation that something was watching me from the shadows sent a wave of panic through my chest. I turned, scanning the cemetery, half expecting to see someone lurking in the distance. The air was thick, like the night itself was waiting for something to happen. The ground around Tommy's grave felt wrong, unnatural, as if it held secrets it wasn't ready to give up. I couldn't stay here any longer. I had to leave. But my mind raced with the urgency to understand what was unfolding. The letter, the keys, the photo, they were all tied together, part of some twisted puzzle Tommy had left behind for me to piece together. But the more I thought about it, the more the truth seemed to slip through my fingers. The danger was real. Tommy had known it, and now somehow I was part of it. I stepped back from the grave, trying to push the rising panic away. I had to find out who the man in the photo was. I had to know what Tommy had meant when he wrote those words. Before I could act, a voice broke through the stillness. You shouldn't have opened it. I turned to see the figure standing in front of me once again, the one who had appeared earlier, shrouded in shadow, the same chilling figure, but now the air around them felt like it was alive, crackling with unseen energy. You've unleashed something, the figure said, his voice low, like a whisper carried by the wind. And now you must finish what Tommy started. My heart raced. Finish what Tommy started? What are you talking about? I asked, taking a cautious step back. The figure stepped closer, his gaze piercing through me. Tommy was never supposed to know, but once he found the truth, he couldn't stop himself from digging deeper. Now it's your turn. The door is open, and there's no going back. The door, the key, the man in the photo, Tommy's warnings. Everything had led me here, to this moment. The puzzle pieces were falling into place, but it was a picture I wasn't ready to see. What door? I demanded, my voice shaky, but desperate for answers. The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his cloak and pulled out something. An old, worn book, its cover marked with the same strange symbols I had seen on the box. He held it out to me, and I felt the overwhelming urge to take it, though part of me screamed to run. The book will guide you, the figure said softly, but beware, for the truth may be more than you're willing to face. I hesitated, but something inside me pushed me forward. I had no choice but to take it. As my fingers brushed the book's cover, a jolt of energy shot through me. The ground trembled slightly beneath my feet, and I could feel the air grow heavier around me. The figure nodded solemnly, his eyes never leaving mine. The door is waiting for you. Now it's your turn to decide if you want to open it. With the book in my hands, I understood. I was at a crossroads, a point of no return. Whatever this book contained, whatever this door held, would change everything. The figure disappeared into the shadows, his presence gone as suddenly as it had come, leaving me standing alone at my son's grave. The book in my hands, the key burning in my pocket. The truth was within my reach. But at what cost? As I walked away from the grave, the weight of the decision ahead of me crushed down, and I knew, whatever I found inside that book, whatever door I opened, there would be no going back.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.